Hello, good evening to our lovely viewers. Welcome back to the platform. Good to see you guys again. I'm waiting for people. I'm on my own. Okay, we have 9 people with us right now, which is good. Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our conversation again. The usual conversation that we have on our Wednesdays. This is the platform, a program brought to you by PAGS with support from OSISA. Today we have a very interesting conversation, and I have two amazing ladies that are going to be joining us as we discuss this issue. So today's topic, we are talking about the safety of women amidst political violence. We can never run away from the conversation of violence. We know we're in a period where it's highly politically charged and we are expecting a lot of violence, though we wish we couldn't, and we hope we won't have it as much as we expected. And we know that the expectance is coming from the previous experiences that we've had in the past 10 years, where we've seen a high rise of political violence, not only during the general elections, but also during by-elections, even as low as councillor level. So we're hoping we don't see more, but in the assumption that we get to have it, I think we need to begin to discuss what is going to be the safety of women. And of course, we can't forget talking about the safety of children. Now, we understand that women make up the majority number of the population in the country and are also key players in the political environment. And we know that usually in the cases that we have high violence, they usually become the largest victims, including the children. Who become highly affected by the political violence itself. We know that the women play the big roles in all sectors, economical, social, environmental, and also mental, starting from community levels. Women control the economic systems that happen. We have the largest numbers of women marketeers. We have the largest numbers of women general workers. We have the largest numbers of children in our communities, and this is where most of the political activities happen. We can't forget talking about the highly and densely populated areas within the country, where we find very huge numbers of women and children. And this is where majority of the political activities happen, the grassroots mobilization. Yet, this is the same place where we have the highest levels of violence. So how can we not have this conversation? How can we be able to assure ourselves that our women and our children are going to be safe, especially during this year? I think already we have recorded a good number of very negative political interactions among the political parties, but also among individuals. We've seen even from the news how it turns out that even two people end up, getting in a very difficult situation as far as physically assaulting themselves, worst case scenario, death over political matters. So tonight, thank you, both for joining in. I hope you don't fall off soon. Okay, yeah. So this evening, I'm joined by two amazing women. I'm joined by the spokesperson of the Socialist Party, Rehoboth Kafwabulula, and then later on, we'll be joined by another amazing lady that will introduce herself as soon as she shows up. We're just having a bit of technical challenges, but be assured of her joining us. Comrade Rehoboth, good to have you here. Good evening.
Good evening, Mumbi. Glad to be back. The internet is proving not to be an ally to women's movement today, but
Yeah.
yeah, but we're doing our best, comrade. We're resisting even the internet, but it's good to be back.
Okay. Good to hear that. I hope we managed to fight the challenges of the internet. I also agree. I think the past months, ever since we even started talking about, ever since the campaign period was actually launched, I don't think the internet has been a good ally to women. So I hope we get to win. I hope we get to win. Okay, we've lost Rehoboth again, but anyway, okay, yeah, she's back. So, Conrad, we are having a very interesting conversation today, and it's talking about the safety of women amid this political violence. Just before you joined us, I was having a conversation with the viewers to say, in the last 10 years, we've seen a consistent rise in the levels of violence within our communities and in the country. And unfortunately, it's not only been a case of during general elections, but even in between the years themselves, even when we're not having elections. But worse off for still having such cases, even at low levels of councillor elections, by elections, we're still seeing very high levels of political violence. And we are hoping we don't get the same, but so far I think we can already see that we are getting towards that direction. And we know that women are a very important factor of our society, including children. And that's why we're asking this question today. Are the women safe amidst this political violence? How are we going to measure the safety of women amidst this political violence? So, my question to you, Rehoboth, is I think that it would be good to first ask, are the women safe? And please, as you give your answer, remember to also cover the children because I know that we have a lot of them within our communities as well.
Okay. Um, I think first of all, when we speak about women in terms of the current political terrain, it's very important to acknowledge also that there's a wider issue, a much wider societal issue when we talk about women's safety, because women, even in the home, are not safe. Women in the school are not safe. Um, Women in churches are not safe. We are harassed verbally, we are assaulted physically in almost every sector there is, including the workplace. Um, Especially, I mean, if you look at today's Zambia is increasingly violent even before the election season began, Mumbi. I think one thing we can all, speak about is the
Yeah,
ongoing violence against women in the home.
yeah,
There's been an increase, especially now with the COVID, and some people had to go into lockdown. What we saw was a sharp spike in the increase of the number of women who are suffering from GBV. They were being assaulted by the men that they live with, both their husbands and other family members, whether it's an uncle, whether it's a brother. One thing that we can say for sure is that we live in a country where violence against women has been normalized. Somebody can beat up a 22-year-old girlfriend, someone who he's not even married to, and they'll say it's discipline. It's not something new to us, even as young people when we go out, we're having a good time and maybe it's in the evening. It's not unusual to find a boyfriend beating up his girlfriend, a man beating his partner up. So
yeah.
the violence against women, I think, is something that has become extremely normalized. And the political terrain is just a reflection of, the wider Zambia that we've built for ourselves. So to answer your question, no, women are not safe. The children are not safe either. But then the challenge I have when it comes to especially political violence is it manifests itself not just physically, but especially verbally. The
Mm,
way people address women candidates, the way people address women political figures is different
yeah,
from the way they address men. You know, someone can find it so easy to say of a woman they don't know, a woman they've never met, they'll say she's a prostitute, she's a
yes,
harlot, she's this, she's that. They have got
mm,
no proof of that,
yeah,
but they'll be so free and they'll be so comfortable to utter those words against the woman. So I think
yeah,
that we've created a space, especially in the political terrain now, we've created a space where people are so comfortable
yeah.
insulting women, calling women all sorts of names. And when you normalize abuse, verbal abuse, it's very easy now to also normalize physical abuse.
Mm-hmm.
We know we live in a country where it's okay for somebody to, we condemn political violence. Huh? If a
Yeah,
person wearing a green shirt slaps somebody wearing a red shirt, we'll say, how can he do that to his fellow man? What's that? But This is the same country where a man beats a woman and neighbors will say, but it's normal. What did she do to her husband? You see?
Mhm.
And that same culture, I think it's safe to say, has seeped into the politics because
Yeah.
politics is it's just a small part. It's like a cell. It's just a
Yeah.
microcosm of the rest of Zambia. So we do have a very big problem when it comes to violence against women and violence against children in this country.
Okay. Thank you for that response, Rehoboth. I think that what makes me happy about this response is that there's one thing that's coming out clear, and that the levels of violence that we are seeing in politics is actually not the problem. We have a deeper problem that comes from within our homes that we have normalized, and now that it's spreading out to the larger society, it's even becoming more difficult to condemn because we have already normalized it on a household level. And actually, we are aware that, in fact, violence itself is the reason why we even see less number of women be active in politics.
Mhm,
We also need to remember that we have
mhm.
a divergent base when we begin to talk about women and their involvement in the governance structures. We need to understand that not all of them are going to be in politics. There's some who are just general marketeers. There's some who are just general members of the communities, yet become affected by political violence. Where are we going wrong as a country? What are we not doing right to ensure that we curtail this? Because the worst thing about this conversation is that the reality is that the violence is about to get worse. And it will get worse if it
Mm.
doesn't get curtailed. So where are we going wrong as a country that it's reaching this extent?
Yeah. Where are we going wrong? Ish. That's a very
Yeah,
good question to ask.
yeah,
I
I'm
think,
asking that because we've seen a lot of announcements, including by the president, talking about how we're going to, fight against GBV. We've seen a lot of statements by women organizations. We've seen the police, uh, owing allegiance to the women and protecting them against violence. Yet we have political violence that's becoming so difficult to curtail. So where are we going wrong, even with so much efforts that are being claimed to be put in? Okay, I think we've lost Comrade Rehoboth there. I hope she joins us soon. I know she'll be back. Okay, there she is.
Chief, I'm so sorry. I lost the last bit now.
It's okay. It was over to you. You can give the response.
Okay, so the question was where are we going wrong in terms of ending violence against women? Yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Since we're talking about politics, I'll limit my response to politics. I think we'll leave the home, the church to the experts in that field. I think the first thing for me is really just about creating a space that's safe for women, and that's women friendly. The trouble with a lot of the spaces that we have is they were not created for women in the first place. So
Yeah.
what happens is when you put women there, they are almost suffocated out. I don't know if you know what I mean, but if you look at, I think one of the biggest challenges that the women's movement has had is how do you get more women's faces in positions of power? Because the thinking is always if you put women in power, then they will solve the challenges around GBV. They will solve the issues of violence and harassment against their fellow women. But the issue is always, even when you put those women there, first of all, how to even get them there is
Yeah.
always tricky because the space was never made for them. So when they get there, they're insulted, they are called prostitutes, they are beaten up, especially in the political space. There's a lot of that political violence. They are beaten up. They are just treated in a very disrespectful, inhumane way. A lot of women can't cope with that. So they leave the space, and they're not, and when I say the space, I mean the leadership space. So they occupy the bottom spaces, and it's very difficult to create change from the bottom. You can try, but if things don't move at the top, if the power structure doesn't move with you, then there's very little that you can get done. I think the challenge I've found in terms of the political space is just particularly the language used against women is very, usually disparaging. Sometimes when people talk about women's participation, they speak about it as if they're talking to children. They'll be talking to grown women, whether they're members or whether they're leaders, and they'll be talking to them as if they're talking to children who need to be guided, you know. People will issue careless statements like, a woman can't lead here because women don't support each other. What does that really even mean? You know, what does it mean when you say to women you can't manage because your fellow women will not support you? What are you trying to say about those fellow women? So for me, I think the biggest issue, or among the bigger issues, is the language. If we can fix the language, and by language I mean also media narrative. What do we push in the mainstream? I think it will be much easier to also shift the mindset, because the mindset is created first and foremost by the language that we use.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, comrade. So, as you were speaking, I picked an interesting point, which you said. Maybe the problem, the mistake we make is to think that when we actually get the women into these positions, they'll go and fight the type of violence that women are facing in the political space. Oh, okay, we lost Comrade both there. But anyway, right before she left, I wanted to ask an interesting question where I wanted to find out. Okay, she's back. All right, Comrade, welcome back for the 10th time. Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
yeah, before you cut off, I was saying you said something interesting. Why you said maybe the mistake we make is to think that when we actually put these women into this decision making position, they'll actually go to fight there, because there's actually an already bigger battle of how do we get women there. So when I was doing a research about this topic and trying to find how such conversations have been led in other countries, I found an interesting report by the UN. And according to the UN, they were claiming that when we increase the number of women in these decision making positions, we are able to actually reduce the amount of violence that is brought towards women, especially the amount of political violence that is brought towards women. And you have already explained, you said something interesting and very highlighting as you are explaining why you talked about how the violence is just not the physical one, but also language wise, emotional wise. I don't know how you make of that point. If you have what I would want to call an otherwise opinion that it won't take the women themselves to be in power for it to change.
I think that having women in power is a good step, because they can create policy, they can create environment that's conducive for other women to get on board, and to get other women to participate. But I don't think that by simply having more women, just the women themselves, things will change. I don't think so. And the reason why I don't subscribe to that school of thought is sometimes we have got women in power who are worse to their fellow women than men. We have seen it in this country. We have had certain women leaders who are not motherly in terms of their approach in leadership. So I think it's not just about having a woman's face, but also having a woman who has got women-friendly policies. I think the two need to go together. And I think that in countries where this works, the two actually go together. The challenge which we have, I think, as a movement in Zambia is we're just looking for women's faces without backing it up with policy. I can stand to be a leader today as a member of parliament. That would be good, well and good. But do I actually have policy that I want to implement, legislation that I want to implement that's going to make sure that the next woman, uh, the next young girl that goes to university, first of all, that young girls are even able to go to university? Am I going to put in policy that will make sure that women who sell in the markets are not going to be harassed by certain individuals while they are doing their business and their trade in the market? I think for me that's the bigger issue. So it's a twofold thing. I think having women helps because people can see that actually women are capable of more, which we are. But I think also it's important that those women have this second aspect about them, which is a feminist approach, or a motherly approach, even in terms of legislation, in terms of policy, in terms of making sure that there is an equitable distribution of resources, an equitable distribution of opportunity, especially for other women and children.
Okay. Interesting answer there. I was hoping you're going to get stuck somewhere so that I capitalize on that. Yeah, but anyway, I know that you have a great investment in the politics and understanding the role of women and their safety. But I really want us to talk about the women that we are not having a conversation about, and those are the women in our communities. I think we know that when the political violence is happening, it doesn't happen at a particular place where people who've got highly politically charged emotions will say, "Oh, let's meet at one place and let's fight about our differences." They do this in our actual communities where we stay. They do this in the markets where our women are leaders of those economic activities in the same markets. I think I would want to hear from you, comrade. How can we be able to protect those women? How do we assure their safety during this period? Because we know that they are the closest victims to these activities.
I'm sorry, Mumbi, I didn't get the last bit of your question.
Okay, so I'm saying we are going to do a focus on women in our communities because we know that when the violence is happening, it happens right at the hearts of our communities. Where, okay, comrade has left us again. Well, let's wait for her to come back. But please keep sending in those contributions, the questions, keep sharing and keep liking. Okay, so Robot is back. Please make sure to send your questions. Send as many questions as you can. We still have a lot of time, and Robot is here to help us with those answers. Right before you cut, welcome back for the 11th time. Um, I was saying the violence happens in the actual communities where these women lead the activities of the day. We don't see violence where those who want to engage in it call each other and say, let's go to a particular place where we're going to fight and finish off our anger towards our different opinions. They actually do it right where the women are, right where the women lead their activities, lead their homes, lead their beliefs. And my interest is particularly those. How do we ensure that they are safe? Okay, I think Airtel has done the other injustice again. Okay, she's trying to join on this other one. Yeah. Did you hear the question, comrade?
Eish, comrade, the internet is fighting us today.
And that's what I'm saying. You know, the internet is not going to be an ally to women during this period. I disagree. Did you get the last question? Did you get the question I was asking though?
I heard the first bit, but the actual question itself I didn't hear because of the connection.
Okay, so the actual question is how do we protect the women in our communities who get to be witnesses and usually the first victims of political violence, because it happens right in the hearts of our communities where they lead their economic activities, their family activities, and their belief activities. How do we ascertain the safety of those women?
Okay. The problem with the line is it started breaking again.
Okay, wow. Okay, so we've lost Rehoboth there. So I'll get to read some of the comments that you guys are sharing. I'll get to share them on the screen while we wait for her to join us. Okay, she's back, and there she goes. Please go ahead, comrade.
I'm back. I don't know if you can hear me.
Welcome back, comrade, for the 12th time.
Thank you. I think your last question was about what we're doing in communities, yes? Or what we
Yes.
can do in communities to protect the women that live there during the campaign period.
Mm. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Please give a response to that one. Okay, so the internet is on our piece again, and let's do that. Comrade, if you can hear me, please go ahead. You're already in the studio.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead then. I think I heard you, so I'll just answer to what I think I heard.
Please.
Um, for me, I think the most important step is to, first of all, make sure our cadres are in line. Um, at the end of the day, campaigns are not things that just happen. They are things that are actually managed by people. There's
Mm,
usually in a constituency a campaign manager or a constituency chair or a candidate who is more or less running the campaign. This candidate has got their foot soldiers who are doing their door to door and things like that. They've got their people who help them out with their media engagements. So there's really a team, coordinated team. People don't just walk around constituencies anyhow without being sent. It's a coordinated effort. If it's done by a person in a party, it's a coordinated effort by the party. If it's an independent, still more, that person has a team that they work with.
yeah.
There's no such thing as a cadre who is just a supporter. Each and every cadre is a cadre from somewhere, and we can actually identify where those people come from. So I think that it's time that we got to a place where we took responsibility for our cadres and their actions as political parties and as political players. Gone are the days, or should be gone are the days where we should say, oh, this person did ABCD on their own, you know?
Mhm.
And even if they did something on their own, we should still be able to discipline those people because they are members of our organizations, whether we like it or not. We should be able to say whatever this person did was wrong, we distance ourselves from it in the event that they commit atrocious acts in the constituencies where they're deployed to work, and we should be able to discipline them. If it means we take our cadres to the police, we should be able to do that. If
Mm,
our cadres go and they beat women in a market, we should be able to say that's wrong. And we should
yeah.
be able to pick them and take them to the police so that they can be charged with an offense and they can later stand trial for the atrocities they commit. If they are not our cadres, still we should find a way to help
Right.
and take them to face the law. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in terms of campaign, especially campaign violence, is a lot of the time political parties wash their hands. If your cadres do good, you
Yeah.
yeah, if our cadres are doing the correct things, yeah, if our cadres are doing the right things, we say, yeah. That's our team, those are our guys. But if our cadres mess up, we say, oh, they're not from our party, or oh, our party is not aware of those things. No, we should be able to take responsibility. And sometimes I think responsibility just means expelling somebody from the party. It should be able to mean taking someone to the police in the event that somebody else has been injured. But to always wash our hands, I think it's not helped this country. And I would love to see a situation where this year, when violence happens, that political parties own up, that we
Yeah.
face up. We must, the same way we are proud when they do good, when they do bad, we should be able to discipline them. That's the only way
Yeah.
to do it.
Okay. I've sent a question to you because I don't want you to be missing my questions in cases where I'm breaking. So just make use of your device if you can see the question. Uh, I think my next question is asking you to say, I think in the recent days, we've actually seen a case where we've
Mm,
also seen women become key players in the violence
mm,
themselves. We've seen videos of women being the ones
mm,
saying threats, oh no, when we come, we'll beat you, and all those things. I,
mm. Yeah.
how do we begin to sort that problem? Because we know that they are deepened in the conducts that we are trying to condemn and the conduct that we're trying to protect them from. How do we begin to do that? Because I think, those are the people that now make society changes the conversation about perception of women and say they don't support each
Mm,
other. These guys are
yeah.
supposed to be protecting each other. Now they're in the forefront. I don't know how we're going to deal with those
Yeah.
problems. I leave them to you.
Okay, for me, I think you need to start calling us out as political parties and as political players. You
Yeah.
need to call us out, call us to order, because there's no cadre who cannot be controlled. There is no political party member who can't be disciplined. If they're in our organization, we must be able to discipline them. It's not just about patting them on the back when they mobilize well or when they conduct themselves well. It's also about, when things go bad. That's why parties have leadership. There's no
Yeah.
party in this country without a central committee or a national management committee or whatever you want to call it. You must begin to call us out on our cadres so that we call them to order. And if we can't call our own cadres to order, how are we going to run an entire country? I think for me, I would love to see a situation where each political party is able to, conduct itself in a reasonable and respectful way. If we are not able to say to our comrades at the grassroots that, look, you can't go around hitting yourselves, breaking bottles on yourselves, whether you are men, whether you are women. And if you do that, we'll simply hand you over to the police. I would love to see a situation, Mumbi, where if people do wrong, even within the party itself, that we are able to hold each other to book. I love how the Chinese do it, the Chinese Communist Party. They are so strict on, I mean, of course, they don't have issues like political violence, but they've got issues to do with corruption.
Mm.
If you are corrupt there, your comrades will take you to the police, your
Yeah.
own comrades. And I think we need to adopt that system in Zambia. We can't continue to wash our hands off of these people. It's not working.
Okay. But you know what? When we start talking about washing our hands, isn't it that also maybe our law enforcers, to some extent, are also relaxed about dealing with these issues? Because if you ask me, it shouldn't take a report for someone to be arrested for doing something that is wrong, for someone to do something that they clearly know that they're infringing on somebody else's rights. Worse off, threatening their life, and we know that life is a preserved treasure even by the constitution, not only in this country but the entire universe. It's a conserved privilege. So should it take someone to report such a crime? Shouldn't the law always come in when it's needed, as and when, like what it's supposed to do? Did you get the question, comrade? Hello, comrade. Can you hear me? Did you get the question?
Comrade, I can hear you, but I completely missed your question just now.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying, well, should it always take someone to report for something that is wrong? Isn't this where the law enforcers are supposed to come in and come and do what their job requires them to do, which is to maintain law and order?
Mm.
Because I feel, if we give the responsibilities to people to go and report, and in cases where they don't report, does it then make the crime right? Because I think this is what motivates people to continue doing it. It's because even when no one reports, no law enforcer is going to show up and come and do what they're supposed to do, which is to make sure that law and order is in place, whether one person reports or not. But as long as a crime has been committed, they must come in. Okay, Comrade Roboth has dropped off again. But please, if you're here, please make sure you like, share, leave a comment, and leave as much questions as you can. We'll be answering them in the next 4 minutes. Um, Comrade, welcome back for the 14th time. I hope you can hear me and I hope you got the question.
Comrade, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, but I can't really see you, but I can hear you.
Okay. Did you get the question though?
I didn't get the question. You can just give it to me briefly.
Yeah, so I was saying, isn't this the part where law enforcers need to come in? Should it always okay? We've lost Comrade Both again. Um, but anyway, let's keep on with the conversation. I'm seeing your questions, and I will soon begin to start popping them up on the screen so that we begin to answer them in the next 5 minutes. As soon as Comrade Both gives us a response to the question we're asking, and then we'll get into your questions. So keep them coming. We want to know them. All right, comrade. Thank you for getting back. So my question was: isn't this where the law enforcers are supposed to come in, such as the police? Should it always take someone to report, even when something is wrong, even when they're supposed to act there and then? Should it wait for someone to go to the police station and go and report?
Comrade, I'm sorry. You were really breaking just now, so I didn't get the question still.
Okay, just tell me if you can hear me clearly right now. Give me a yes or
I
no
can hear
answer.
you clearly.
Loud and clear.
Yes.
Okay. So I was asking comrades to say, isn't this the part where the law enforcers, such as the police, come in, and we should not wait for someone to make a report over someone infringing on another individual's rights, especially human life, because
Mm.
wherever there's involved, we must protect life. Isn't this where they must come in? Should it wait? Should they wait until someone reports?
Okay, I hear you. I got your question right now. You're asking about the law enforcement and why we should wait for, say, maybe a party to report. Why can't you just report on your own? Yes, is that the
No, no,
question?
no. Why don't the police act there and then? When they know that there is a problem, it
Mhm.
shouldn't take someone to report. Why don't they call political parties to book? Shouldn't wait for citizens to go and report.
Okay, I think I got you. I'm just going to respond to what I think I heard. So if I'm off tangent, forgive me.
Yeah.
Um, I think that one of the biggest challenges we have, and I'll say it here, we have a police force that, in my view, is understaffed. And when I say understaffed, I mean the ratio of police to the number of people who live in the constituency. Sometimes it's not proportional. Let me give you an example. If you go to Mtendere today, and you
Mm.
go to, I think they call it Mtendere East, just near Mtendere Main Market, we have a
Yeah.
police post. In the police post, you should find about, on an ordinary day, you should find about 4 to 5 police officers. But
Yeah.
you ask yourself, how many people live in Mtendere East? The number is
Okay, so we've again. Uh, okay, she's back.
yeah. So, comrade, let me cut it down then just quickly. So yeah, the number of police to some of the numbers of the people who live in the constituencies, it's not enough. That's why when you have a situation, say for example, of gassing, or you have a situation where, I think the past 2 3 years we had that situation where there were those ritual killings going on. A lot of the time people don't feel safe, and the reason why a lot of people don't feel safe is because they feel they don't have enough security, and that's one of the biggest problems. You find when you go to most of our. Yeah, so that's one of the biggest challenges. It's that the number of people in the police force, as compared to the number of people they are meant to protect, is grossly insufficient. Which is why, every now and again, I think we've got these security issues, where the community feels they need to take things into their own hands. There's a lot of mob justice, and all sorts of other things that shouldn't be there. So even when you go into things like politics and a political campaign, the same thing happens. The police, in my view, don't necessarily have the numbers that we need to ensure that our constituencies, our communities, are adequately protected.
Okay. So I think I know where Comrade was going, and I think what she was just trying to explain to us is that um, we're probably understaffed as a country when it comes to the public service of the police. Okay, she's back to finish. Yay!
Yeah, comrade, I don't know. Can you hear me now?
Perfectly well.
Okay. Yeah, so we're understaffed. So in short, it's the same thing as the GBV in the households.
Mm.
We have a security issue. And that security issue, when you involve things like politics in the equation, politics for me the security issue we have. The security issue is there, but when we've got a security crisis, it just more like it more like opens our mind and our eyes to the.
Okay, so while we're still waiting for Comrade to come back, I think we're really having very serious network injustices towards us tonight. Um, yeah, she's back. You're loud and clear.
Yeah, comrade, this network thing is really an enemy against me tonight.
I'm telling you. Okay, yeah, I think you can proceed,
Yeah.
and then we will soon get just 2 to 3 questions that have been shared with us, and then we'll get to close. So we only have like 10 minutes left. We can do it! Yay! Are you able to hear me? Robert, can you hear me?
I can hear you now, but I don't know what you said just now. I missed that bit,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Did you finish your thoughts? I want us to get into the questions that our viewers have been sharing with us, so that we get to give them the answers just now. We only have about 15 minutes to go, so we'll eventually have to close in the next 15 minutes. Um, there's this question that's coming from Zenix. Zenix Wengo. I don't understand what you're trying to say, but I hope I get it. Um, Robot is back here to come and give some responses to the questions you are asking. Um, Comrade, thank you for getting back. So I'm saying we are going into the question session. We'll just see some of the comments that have been shared with us by our viewers, and then we can get to give responses to them. So I'm popping up questions on the screen. There's a question already. There's a comment or question right now on the screen, and it's coming from a gentleman called Zenix.
Yeah.
I don't understand what he's trying to say, but if I'm getting him right, he's trying to talk about how men call women prostitutes, and then I think he's trying to relate it with the reality of how he thinks women dress, and he puts in he brings in a biblical view where he says, and according to the Bible, you're not even allowed to be leaders, and that's because of dress code. What's your reaction to that? I know the issue of dress code always comes in um, very much when it comes to
Uh,
women leadership.
my first reaction would be that's not biblical. There's nowhere in the Bible that says women are not supposed to be leaders.
Mm. So he says, sister, I heard you said, man, okay. You may have to rewrite your question before I misinterpret you, Chief. Please go ahead, Real.
Mumbi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Loud and clear. You can go ahead to give in the response to the
Okay.
question on the screen.
Okay. So just a quick one then. In the Bible, there's one woman leader I can refer him to. Her name was Deborah. Deborah was a judge over all Israel. So before there were kings in Israel, there were judges who used to lead. And these judges were basically the leaders of all the 12 tribes of Israel. So for someone to say women are not allowed to be leaders according to the Bible, that person has no idea what the Bible actually talks about. Because Deborah was a woman, she was a judge, and there are many other examples, but I'll just leave him with that one because she's a favorite.
Yeah. Okay, I think he's trying to talk about the dress code because he says, sister, I heard you say, man, I don't know what you're trying to write here. Um, I think some men are wrong to call, I don't know, women prostitutes. That's the reason why. That's the reason why, and because of dress code
Yeah.
and according to the Bible. So I think he's trying to talk about dress code and how it's related to women and why then even the Bible doesn't allow that. So it can't even be allowed of you to be a leader
I
if you
think,
dress in a certain way.
yeah, I think for me, the issue of dress code, if you look at some of the women who are called prostitutes on the political terrain, they dress very decently. Some of them almost look like Catholic nuns. So there's no justification for that. Uh, you can't say that because of the dress code. There's really no justification for that. Um, and there are some people who
Okay, so please go ahead.
yeah. So the second comment, I'm just reading it now. Um, there are some women who have been worse than men. I think that's a true statement, which is why earlier in our conversation I alluded to the fact that it's not just about women faces, because a face does nothing for you. You need two things. You need a face, and you need a strong woman who not only supports other women, but who has got policy, a woman leader who has got policy, who's got a manifesto, who's got ideals that support, that favor the development and the growth of other women and children. So we're not just promoting women's leadership, saying because she's a woman, she'll support other women. We recognize the fact that identity politics hasn't really taken us anywhere, you know. But there's a difference between identity politics and representation or representative politics. Identity politics is about he's a youth, he will support youths. She's a woman, she'll support women. Representative is different in that it talks about how this person has got ideals. This person has got principles. This person has got conviction that supports women, that supports youth, that supports children, their development, their progress, and a better life for them as well. So that's the bigger picture. It's very twofold, I think. Yeah.
Okay. So there's another one that I've brought on the screen. I don't know if it's the one you are responding to.
It's the one. It's the one.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think I also have a bit of a different opinion when it comes to the idea of women supporting women. And I'm glad you've actually talked about the idea of identity politics and representation politics. I don't believe it's true that women don't support each other. I think we need to allow women to learn to have divergent views. And just because we're women, it doesn't mean we're going to take the direction. I feel the idea of women supporting each other is given this picture that I must agree with what any other woman says, or I must agree with any other woman that comes on board. That's not what it actually means. I think people need to understand that it's okay for women to disagree. In fact, it's normal. There's no way you can have society where every woman thinks the same. It's impossible. And democracy thrives on divergent views, not one direction, because that's what strengthens the system. So I think this idea where just because women disagree becomes painted as women not supporting each other is wrong. Because merely me accepting that you are on board and welcoming you is enough support, but it doesn't mean that we are going to agree on the same ideas. The idea of bringing women on board is to make sure that they are able to express their divergent views and they're able to contribute in society in the aspect of being human beings and not being women. And that's how we're bringing them out. We treat them like kids. I think you said that earlier in your statement. We treat them like kids, orienting them and all these things. When we talk about them coming on board, we are talking about them beginning to share their different ideas that they have and make them become active solutions of society. But at no point does it mean I will agree with what another female will say. So not supporting them is basically saying I don't want them, or finding a way of them not being in the system. But me not having the same idea with them has nothing to do with not supporting them. It's actually something we must embrace, because it shows that women actually have various options that society can benefit from. Sorry for stealing your time, but I always want to make this point very clear.
No.
Women and supporting each other.
It's a good point. It's a good point. It's a good point. I couldn't have said it any better. And I love the fact that you actually brought it out, because the challenge I always have is just, I'm a socialist. That's my politics. I don't believe in capitalism. But there are some women who are capitalists. They believe in capitalism. Me not supporting them doesn't mean I don't support women. It just means I don't agree with their politics.
Yeah, I think out of in fact making it clear, you are a socialist, and for me, I still try to figure out exactly how socialism works. So I'm always in the middle, like give me half of everything.
Yeah.
And then I don't support you. It has nothing to do with that, because we all have reasons why we're choosing, and it should never be taken like that. If we don't agree, it doesn't mean we don't support each other. We should actually embrace it, because it shows women actually do possess divergent views that can be used as solutions in our society. So Scarlett actually brings in another point, and this one is sort of Well, going in the opposite direction of what she said. So she says the police response depends on which political party you represent, which they disguise as understaffed. If it's something to do with stopping an opposition, you will see multitude of officers. So the understaffed becomes some kind of an excuse in our eyes. I think in our eyes, she means in the aspect of society. And yeah, what's your response to that? Because I would almost like 30% agree with her.
You know, I'll I'll be frank with you. When I think of security and when I think of safety of women, it can't just be limited to safety during political times, because the
Yeah,
police, I mean, what this person has brought up, Scarlett, what Scarlett has brought up is a very real issue, but it's also very politically charged. When
yeah,
we talk about security of women, we can't limit it to campaign period, because women, we don't just disappear after campaigns. We'll be there even after campaigns. If a
yeah,
woman is raped and beaten by her husband today, and she lives in a constituency where she has to walk 3, 4, 5 kilometers to go to a police station, really for me, that doesn't make sense. If the
yeah,
police are so far away and so inaccessible that people have to go this long distance until they can find them, if the police are maybe 4 or 5 in a station and there's a riot, for example, in the constituency, and they can't deal with it, they have to call other police from another place, and
yeah.
women are being beaten up in the market, they can't deal with it immediately because they're not enough in that moment. It means they're understaffed. Even when you look at police thwarting dissent, political dissent, or opposition political dissent, usually
Mm. Okay, so I think
they do it in a very organized way. Yeah? It's not,
yeah,
it's something that they have to organize themselves, group, come together to where they feel the opposition are going to be, you know.
yeah.
But when we talk of police and when we talk about management and security in the constituencies and communities where we live, we can't think about only the big events. What about the smaller events? And I think that's primarily what we were speaking to when we were talking about the staffing of police.
Okay, so I think to make us clear, she's brought in another comment. I think just trying to clarify. So remember, comrade, we have about 2 minutes to go, so you have to give this one a quick response. And there's one more issue that I also want you to attend to. So she says, understaffed? I don't think so. I have instances where I saw the whole Lusaka was flooded with police officers looking for a few number of protesters that went as far as protesting in the bush. So usually understaffed feels like it's an excuse used when officers don't want to do their jobs right.
Comrade, sorry, I didn't quite get you there.
Okay, so there's a question in front of you. Can you see it? Okay, yeah. Comrade Rebel has sort of dropped out again, but we'll proceed. Thank you for the questions. We still have 2 minutes. I can see comments here from John Peary, Scarlett. Thank you for bringing in so much of the questions that you had for us. I can see Trap. I mean, that's what I'm reading. Comrade, there was a question for you. There are two last questions I want you to look at. Two last comments. Um, that one and the next one, which is the last one, in the next 2 minutes to finish up. Can you hear me? Robot, can you hear me?
Comrade, I think this is the same comment which we've just addressed just now.
Okay, so that's the final one that I want you to address, and I think it's it's a serious poke to the other gender. Can you see the comment in front of you? There's a comment I've shared.
Understaffed, I don't think so. By Scarlett Kalunga Ortiz, is that the one?
No, no, no. There's one that I've shared by CDE Comrade Muleta Kapatiso, and it says, if men supported each other more than women, we would have seen one male political candidate with others just alliance to support. But here we are, over 10 men aspiring to be presidents of Zambia.
Ish. Comrade, okay, if men supported each other more than women, we would have seen one male political candidate. This is a nice comment. Salute to this comrade Muleta. Comrade Muleta, this is a nice comment, a very interesting one. That's a
Okay.
very interesting comment, and I think it's the truth. It paints a true picture.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, comrade, we will have to be coming to the end of the show, but I've just had to highlight that because he sent in another follow-up comment, and I thought he was adding to his previous comment about how men should eventually pick up one candidate for the presidential position. And he says, we cannot protect women amid this political violence. We have failed to even protect children from trained police officers. What more lunatic wannabe political commandos powered by Dutch courage? We can only protect everyone, and everyone is protected when we dismantle political militia groups and call in themselves party security cadres. um, that question always brings arguments. Give me an answer in a minute, comrade, and give me your closing remarks because we have run out of time. We are 2 minutes into our clock. Okay, so unfortunately, Comrade Robot has been cut out of the conversation, but also we have to come to the end of the conversation. She seems to be determined. She's decided to rejoin. I'll allow her to give me her last remarks. I know this.
Comrade, I just came to say good night. And of course, thank everybody for joining us.
Yeah,
My internet is failing me severely. I can hardly hear you. Um, but, I mean, my only closing remark would be the world is made by us. Whatever system which we have in Zambia was created by us. And it's something that can be corrected by us. Whatever is going wrong, we can correct. Whatever is going right, we can improve on. Some of the world empires today were created by men and women.
yeah.
So I think that we just need to keep the
Okay, she's cut out. Unfortunately, we'll have to say goodnight. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. This has been Mumbi on the platform. We'll see you again next week, same time, same place.